Chapter 12. The Land of Do As You Please. Joe jumped up onto the engine of the train. A bright fire was burning there, as it was a steam train. He looked at all the shiny handles and wheels. "How shall I know which is which?" he asked the driver. "Well," said the driver, pointing to the different knobs and handles, "that's the steering wheel, and that's to make the whistle go, and that's to go slow, and that's to go fast. You can't make a mistake. Don't forget to stop at the station, will you? And, oh, look out for the road crossing gates, in case they are shut. It will be dangerous not to take care there." Joe left feeling tremendously excited. Rick looked up longingly. "Joe, could I come too?" he begged. "Please let me, just to watch you." "All right," said Joe. So Rick hopped up into the engine. Beth, Franny, Moonface and Silky got into the carriage just behind. The guard ran alongside, waving a flag and blowing his whistle. "The signal's down," yelled Rick. "Go on, Joe, start her up." Joe twisted the steering wheel. The engine began to move and moved out of the station. Joe's really driving the train," cried Beth. "Oh, isn't he clever? He's always wanted to drive an engine." The engine began to go very fast, too fast. Joe pulled the go slow handle, and it went more slowly. He was so interested in what he was doing that he didn't notice that they were coming up to the station. He shot straight through it. "Joe," cried Rick, "you've gone through a station. Gosh, the passengers waiting there do look cross. And oh, look, a lot of them in our train wanted to get off there." Sure enough, quite a number of angry people were looking out of the carriage windows, yelling to Joe to stop. Joe went red. He pulled the stop handle, and the engine stopped. Then Joe pulled the go backwards handle, and the train moved slowly backwards to the station. It stopped there, and Joe and Rick had the pleasure of seeing the passengers getting off and getting in. The guard came rushing up. "You passed the station! You've passed the station!" he cried. "Don't you dare to pass my station again without stopping." All right," said Joe. "Now then, off we go again," and off they went. "Keep a lookout for stations, signals, tunnels, and road crossings, Rick," said to Joe. So Rick stuck his head out and watched. "Road crossings," he cried. "The gates are shut. Slow down, Joe, slow down." But unluckily Joe pulled the go fast handle instead of go slow, and the train shot forward quickly. Just as the engine reached the gates, Joe pulled the brakes. A little man rushed out of the cabin nearby, just as the train came to a halt. "You bad driver," he shouted. "You might have caused an accident." "That was a narrow escape," said Joe. When the road crossing gates were open, Joe started off again. "What's coming now, Rick?" asked Joe. "A tunnel," said Rick. "Whistle as you go through it, in case anyone is working in it." So Joe made the engine whistle loudly. It really was fun. It raced through the dark tunnel and came out near a station. "Stop! Station, Joe!" cried Rick. And Joe stopped, then went on the train again, whistle loudly, rushing past signals. All the signals were down. Then something happened. The go slow and the stop handles weren't working. The train raced on and past a station, big and small, through tunnels, past signals that were up, and behaved just as if it had gone mad. "Hey," said Rick in alarm. "What's going wrong, Joe?" Joe didn't know. For miles and miles the train went on and all the passengers became alarmed. And then, as the train drew nearer to a station, it gave a loud sigh, and ran slowly, and then stopped all by itself. And it was the very same station it had started from. The driver of the train was there waiting. "So, you're back again," he said. "My, you've been quick. Well, the engine didn't behave itself very well," said Joe, stepping down thankfully. "It just ran away, and the last part of the journey it wouldn't stop anywhere." "Oh, I dare say it wanted to get back to me," said the driver, climbing into the engine. "It's naughty sometimes. Come along and drive it again with me." No, thank you," said Joe. I think I've had enough It was fun and all." Beth, Franny, Moonface and Silky got out of their carriage. They had been rather frightened in the last part of the journey, but they thought Joe was very clever to drive the train by himself. They all left the station. "Now what shall we do?" said Moonface. "I want to ride an elephant," said Franny at once. "There aren't any," said Beth. But no sooner had she spoken than the children saw 6 big grey elephants walking solemnly up to them, swaying a little from side to side. "Oh, look, yelled Franny, filled with excitement. There are my elephants, 6 of them. We can all have a ride." Each elephant had a rope ladder going up the side of it, leading to a little seat which was fixed around the elephant's back. The children and Moonface and Silky each climbed up the rope ladder and sat on a comfortable seat on the elephant's back. Then the big creatures set off, swaying through the crowds. It was lovely. Franny did enjoy herself. She called to the others, "Wasn't this a good idea of mine, everybody? Aren't we high up, and isn't this fun?" "It is fun," said Moonface, who had never even seen an elephant before, and would certainly never have thought of riding one if he had. "Oh goodness, my rope ladder has slipped off my elephant. Now I shall never be able to get down, or I'll have to ride on this elephant all my life." Everybody laughed, but Moonface was really alarmed. Then the children had had enough of riding. They all climbed down their rope ladders. But poor Moonface sat up on his elephant looking very worried. "I tell you I can't get down," he kept saying. "I'm up here for good." The elephant stood patiently for a little while. Then it swinged its enormous trunk around and wound it gently around Moonface's waist and lifted him down to the ground. Moonface was surprised that he couldn't speak. Moonface was that surprised he couldn't speak. At last he found his tongue. "What did that elephant lift me down with?" he asked. "His nose?" "No, that's his trunk," said Joe, laughing. "Didn't you know that elephants have trunks, Moonface?" "No," said Moonface, puzzled. "I'm glad he didn't pack me away as baggage." The children laughed. They watched the big elephants walk off. "What shall we do now?" asked Joe. "Rick, what do you want to do?" "Well, I know I can't do it, but I would love to wade in the sea," said Rick. "Oh, that would be nice," said Franny, who loved wading too. "But there isn't any sea here." Just as she said that, she noticed a signpost near her that pointed away from them and said in the big letters, "To the sea." Wow, look at that," said Franny. "Come on, everyone." And off they all went, running the way the signpost pointed. And after going around 2 corners, there, sure enough, There was the blue sea lying bright and calm in the warm sunshine. Shining golden sands stretched to the water's waves. "Oh, good," cried Rick, taking off his shoes and socks at once. "Come on." Soon everyone was wading in the warm sea. Moonface and Silky had never waded before, but they loved it just as much as the children did. Rick went out so far that he got his clothes soaking wet. "Oh, Rick, you're wet," cried Beth. "Come back." "This is the land of do as you please, isn't it?" shouted Rick, jumping about in the water and getting wetter. "Well, I get as wet as I like then." "Let's make a huge sandcastle," cried Moonface. "Then we can all sit on the top when the sea comes up." "We can't," said Silky, suddenly looking disappointed. "Why not?" cried Joe. "Isn't this the land of do as you please?" "Yes," said Silky, "but it's time we went back to the faraway tree. This land will soon be on the move, and it's nice as it is. We don't want to live here forever." "Gosh, no," said Joe. "Our parents couldn't do without us. Rick, come back. We've got to go home." Rick didn't want to be left behind. He waded back at once, his clothes dripping wet. They all made their way back to the hole that led down to the cloud, to the faraway tree. "We did have a lovely time," said Joe, looking back longingly and at the happy land he was leaving behind. It's one of the nicest lands we've ever been to." At the top of the tree, they all felt tired as they crowded into Moonface's room. "Don't fall asleep before you get home," said Moonface. "Take cushions, all of you." They all went down the slippery slip, yawning as they made their way home. And then they fell into bed, tired out but happy. And in the morning their mother spoke to Rick. "Rick, why are your clothes so wet this morning?" "I waded too deep into the sea," said Rick, and he couldn't understand why his Aunt Polly said that he was a naughty little storyteller.